It is not too often that I script for a video. At most, I'll put down bullet points and go from there. I started my channel in that style, and I have always preferred it that way for the most part. However, certain topics I feel deserve a more scripted approach. To me, a very good character analysis and explanation is one of those times. This is the first of a potential series where I break down underrated characters in fiction who deserve more shine for what they brought to the story. To start this series off, we will begin with a character who took me by complete surprise. Today we will break down the city boy goon himself, Joestar of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Specifically, we will analyze him from part 2 of the series when he was a teen. With that being said, whether you have read his story or not, I hope by the end of this video, I will have presented a solid case for why you should appreciate Joestar so much more. When we first meet young JoJo, we have already experienced his predecessor, Jonathan. Jonathan was a true gentleman who died saving those he loved. The comparison of JoJo to Jonathan is immediately drawn to our attention due to their similarities. They are both physically massive with access to energy manip. However, this is a classic case of surface level looking similar, but it's really not. Jonathan was one who sought peace first. JoJo, off rip, shows he would rather grab the peace than offer peace. JoJo encounters racist cops in 1938 America off rip, bullying a black kid. In those times, helping in this situation is hella risky. It's just a horrible decision. JoJo gave us a glimpse of the multi-layered hero he is. JoJo pulls up on the cops, punks them, and saves the kid. While most would assume he did this to just save the kid, it's not that simple. JoJo has a real issue with those preying on others who simply don't measure up. It is more than bullying to him, it's weakness in his view. If you are the biggest and baddest, act accordingly. Beat the baddest. That's how JoJo carries himself throughout the story. We get the chance to see JoJo with his grandma, Irina, who is the widow of Jonathan. I probably butchered her name, my bad. She openly comments on the difference between her grandson and her fallen husband. Where Jonathan was kind and gentle, JoJo's hood is shit. Such a discrepancy may seem like a cheap tactic by the author. We often see authors kinda simply flip characters from the next generation and call them new, like Naruto did with Boruto stuff. However, the reasons for JoJo being how he is works just fine. JoJo did not grow up in the posh setting that Jonathan did. He did not have a dad there to engrave the ways of a gentleman into him. Instead, he had his grandma and his quote Uncle Speedwagon, reminders of the man who should have been there to teach JoJo. With this in mind, JoJo came into New York in the 1930s, which is a very trying and hateful time. In this way, ironically, I believe the contrast that grows between, Jonathan and JoJo is really due to the biggest thing that Jonathan and JoJo have in common, which is they're both fighters. No, not like MMA, not even like knights or soldiers. It is more primal than that. Jonathan and JoJo are scrappers in their heart. It took a while for Jonathan to understand that. Fight or flight instinct hits and they fight, even if it seems like flight is the move. For JoJo, he did not have that developmental delay. He saw the world for what it was even as a kid due to his insane IQ. An intelligence he hilariously flaunts all the time. JoJo grew up in a city where only the strong survive and the weak crumble. Crumbling was never an option to JoJo. He met the streets with an even fiercer determination than they could ever hope to have. This was the will of JoJo, a will that would keep him standing no matter what. Given how he came up and how he adapted naturally, messing with JoJo is a mistake. In fact, JoJo is liable to beat your ass even if he just barely thinks you may have insulted him or his granny. This is made obvious when a man shows up to inform JoJo and his grandma that Uncle Speedwagon was supposedly dead. JoJo reacted by punching his ass for daring to tell Granny sad news without warning her first. He said even though he may not have meant disrespect, he still had to get popped. JoJo is a man of principle, fairness, equal ass whooping and fades for everybody. Now, this next part is where I honestly knew JoJo was going to be one of my favorite characters. Let's paint the scene. Crowded restaurant. Teenage JoJo, his granny, and a teenager. They just got pulled up on and told that Speedwagon was dead and their lives are in danger. JoJo then sees fangs on the new guy and calls him out for it. This was a vampire, obviously. Reminder, JoJo is only a teenager. This vampire tells JoJo that he was there to take his life before he unlocked his true potential. JoJo says, "Oh, word? That's how you feel?" And then the vampire tries to talk trash, and immediately JoJo whips out a Tommy gun and airs that bitch out. His comrades didn't even know how he could even get one, or how JoJo could just let it fly in a crowded restaurant without caring. This side of JoJo is what makes him a legend. For him, it's anytime, anywhere. You try him, he finishes it. Do not step to JoJo unless you are willing to literally fight to the death. This simplistic mindset is what I believe reflects a big theme in part 2. Evolution and natural selection. Apex predators. JoJo is confronted with humans attempting to become gods, to evolve. JoJo doesn't feel this pressure, but that primal instinct of it's either you or me is very obvious in him. In this fight with the vampire, JoJo showed he loves predicting your lines, which he has done before. He loves predicting what you say because JoJo is all about letting you know who the winner is, who the apex predator is. He then shows another great hustle of his. When the vampire Strazo starts wilding out with the regeneration, JoJo declares he has a plan for immortality. His plan was simple, to do the race. What makes this hilarious is that enemies interpret this as him retreating. He's not running away, it's just a distraction. JoJo, for all his humor, is constantly scheming. He is a survivor, and he didn't make it in the city without being aware. And he didn't make it because he was unprepared. He creates distance and comes up with a way to put down the vampire. This, to me, was to symbolize the passing of the torch. JoJo was already clearly above Jonathan in ability. Gentlemen or not, the Joestars had their new torchbearer. With the rise of the Pillarmen, supposed gods among men, peak of the vampires coming to be, it was time for JoJo to get active. With his uncle still alive, combining with his troubles, JoJo sets out to save the world, city boy style. Eventually, this leads him into conflict with the first Pillarman he meets. JoJo pulls up on him, and his power and confidence causes the Pillarman to comment that humanity may have indeed evolved. This is when JoJo outmaneuvers and tricks the Pillarman, bypassing his durability. He then tells Pillarman, "Don't try to regen, dummy. I've already dealt with that trick." He then kills the Pillarman with zero training. This part of JoJo is almost a hilarious parody to me of characters like Batman. Batman spent decades training and learning. JoJo just brought a Tommy gun. Batman spent decades honing his mind. JoJo spent his teens beating up Nazis with no training and slapping around vampires. His lack of care is literally demonstrated on multiple fronts. Still, he's extremely skilled and extremely smart, and it's hilarious, and it's almost unfair how he could just be naturally that gifted. Now, soon after, JoJo runs into Caesar Zappelli. Caesar is the descendant of Baron Zappelli, a man who helped Jonathan grow in his power. Caesar is the opposite of JoJo. Nice, Italian, elegant, sophisticated, and technique-based. JoJo is a thug. Still, Caesar noticed how smart JoJo really was when they scrapped, blossoming a respect between the two that has become more meaningful down the line. They then run into Wamu, a much stronger Pillarman. Caesar, despite having a unique bubble attack, gets beat up. JoJo tells Caesar to take his soft ass to the corner and cry about his popped bubbles because JoJo has ops to punish. By the way, he almost basically said that. I added a couple words, but JoJo really talks crazy. It's hilarious. When Wamu asks JoJo who he is, JoJo says he's the dude that killed his homeboy. This sparks the battle, as JoJo is pitted against a being way stronger on paper than him. Then again, when does Joseph Joestar even stick to the paper? JoJo is the first to ever damage Wamu, causing him to praise JoJo. JoJo uses a new move to help him win the battle, as he explains he is a modern fighter. That is, Jojo has no concerns with, looking honorable. His honor comes from him getting back up and always fighting back. As the fight wages on, the toughness of Jojo is put on full display. Underneath the disrespectful nature and comedic lines, Jojo's a true fighter. This and his potential brings Wamuu to want to battle him even more, as this was a battle of evolution. Of course, Wamuu takes the L, as Jojo is simply too much of a strategist and a goon for the evolved one to win. After the battle, Caesar takes Jojo back to meet his master named Lisa. They need training to defeat the rest of the vampiric pillarmen. Lisa immediately senses the potential in Jojo, and we see Jojo take an instant aggression to his studies. He is there to win, and even if he has made fun of this kind of stuff before, if it will help him later on, he's going to go through with it and he's going to do it. Progressing rapidly, within days, the young prodigy Jojo even surpasses the skill and finesse of Caesar's Apelli. This is when Lisa reminds Jojo of just how strong he is, and that he wasn't just training to stop the Pillarmen, he was training to both surpass and beat them. To, you guessed it, evolve. After a brief training arc, Jojo sets back after training to finally face his sensei, who was assigned to him by Lisa. Defeating his sensei would prove he was ready. However, when Jojo arrived at the dojo, he sees a pillar man he had seen before with Wamuu, AC/DC. AC/DC literally one shot killed his master, and that shit did not faze Jojo at all. This is when, now being the second time they crossed paths, AC/DC concedes that Jojo's new gaze is quite formidable. This is when the fight should break out, one that shows the hero of our story, Jojo, overcome adversity and barely beat the one who beat his sensei, showing growth. However, Jojo does not have time for that soft-ass storyline. He immediately clowns AC/DC by stopping him with a finger, then cuts his arm off with Haman-infused wire and vegetable oil. Jojo is embarrassing the supposed god at this point, even making fun of him for losing an arm. He then says that since he read The Art of War, Pillarmen have zero chance of beating him because that book was fire, and no matter how long they've been around, it's not more fuego than that book, so he's going to get the W every time. His reasoning is godly. This is another hilarious example of Jojo thinking his prodigy BS is valid. In a sad moment for Jojo, we do see his brother in arms, Caesar, die at the hands of the Pillarmen. Jojo admitted that he was scared to yell for Caesar, because no reply was the worst reply, as it signaled he was gone. But then, Jojo states he isn't gone. The spirit of Caesar, that never give up and never stop trying attitude, would never leave Jojo's side until the end. Seeing his friend was dead should have hurt him mentally and his spirit. It did the opposite. The death of Caesar reminded him of the harsh truth that was, survival of the fittest. Do it by any means. With this truth in mind, Jojo declares to the spirit of Caesar that he should not worry, for Jojo would show the ops no mercy. This is when we see that he goes to the final battle. It's supposed to be Jojo versus Cars. Jojo is instantly glared at by Cars because Jojo killed the other Pillarmen. Jojo doesn't back down, saying he isn't scared of Cars and that he was down for the smoke. However, Jojo still had to go back and finish off Wamuu, handing the Pillarmen multiple L's in one outing. Wamuu stated Jojo is an honorable warrior, one even more honorable than himself. This shows an interesting facet to Jojo's character. Yes, he can be an ass. He was a New York hood rat, it is what it is. But when it matters most, at the biggest points in life, and even in the face of death, Jojo shows up. Such heart, such will was something even Pillarmen couldn't ignore. Like his master, he is then pulled up and he has to fight, right? But his master, Lisa, is then taken down by Cars. Of course, by now we find out that Lisa is actually the mother of Joseph Joestar. Seeing her fall drove Jojo into a rage. Jojo then went toe-to-toe with Cars with no fear at all. However, this battle got ugly, as Cars was able to obtain the stone mask needed to evolve. He donned it and became Ultimate Cars, the peak of evolution. This brings about a sad moment for Uncle Speedwagon, one that honestly was a heart-wrenching moment in the story. And this is a character we haven't even mentioned in a while. Speedwagon begins to break down during the final conflict because he realizes that, just like his grandfather, Jojo was down to die for the fight. The lack of care for his own life is yet again just another layer to his uncaring, cool persona. Thanks to luck, however, something that Jojo had always had, Cars ends up losing to Jojo, and Jojo explains that even if Cars had another 10,000 years, no amount of time will ever make him Joseph Joestar level. Unlike his grandfather, Jojo lived on after the major battle that defined his youth. He would go on to help raise the next generation's torchbearer in the next part as an old man. In the end, I think Joseph Joestar's consistency is what makes him one of the greats, one of the great underrated characters. Jojo always stuck to his guns, no matter what. There was no out of character for him. And he kept this energy, even in the face of death. There is also the fact that Jojo rarely lost, when we typically see the main character take several L's to progress. Jojo broke this mold, as the city boy goon was always about it. The trash talk, the humor, the running away, the vibe-checking Nazis, all of it was beautifully blended together to tell the story of one of the coolest characters I have ever read, Joseph Jojo Joestar, the hero of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures Part 2. Anyways, guys, this was my character analysis on Jojo. Let me know what you think. If you like him, let me know. If you've never heard of him, but he sounds interesting to you, let me know as well. I had fun making the script. I usually don't script, but I enjoyed breaking his character down. Let me know in the comments what underrated characters you want to see an analysis of, and give me a reason why you think they deserve the analysis. It doesn't have to be a huge reason, just 1 or 2 sentences. Just let me know. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. It has been YFV, your favorite villain, and I will see y'all later. Peace.